Your character died in your game of Dungeons & Dragons. Maybe you failed 3 death saving throws, maybe you were hit by a disintegration ray, but now your character's dead, and you have to wait for your friends to resurrect you, or you get to roll a new character. Now, if your character isn't resurrected, where do they go? What happens to D&D characters when they die? This video is sponsored by Describe. They offer finely crafted box text for your tabletop role-playing game. If you need to describe a death god or how your ship's captain died, they have lots of creative read-aloud text that you can use at your table. Improve your game with some fantastic descriptions and dialogue today at describe.com/Jordan with a PH. Thanks again, Describe. Hello everybody, Jordan here. The PH is silent, and I want to know, what happens to D&D characters when they die? Where do they go? What afterlife can they experience? These questions, ironically, have never come up in any of my personal games, despite many character deaths and TPKs. My table would laugh it off and we'd roll new characters to start another different campaign. Character deaths that occurred were either resurrected or just new characters were rolled. As I was studying this, I read up on the conditions in Dungeons & Dragons, and surprisingly to me, death is not one of them. You're just dead. You don't receive the condition of death. We have spells that bring a character back from dead, but it just isn't considered a condition. Not that that is supposed to be weird, I just found it interesting. Revivify brings a creature back to life with 1 hit point that has died in the last minute, but you'll need a diamond worth 300 gold pieces as material components. Raise Dead brings a dead creature back to life who died within the last 10 days. The soul needs to be willing to return to the body, though, and this requires a 500 gold piece diamond. Reincarnate will bring you back if you've been dead no longer than 10 days as well, but your soul enters a newly created body, so your character race could potentially change. Now this costs 1,000 gold points worth of material, and fun fact, this is the only resurrection spell that is not necromancy. It's transmutation. Resurrection brings anyone back to life who has been dead no more than 100 years and who didn't die of old age. The soul must be free and willing to return to the body. True resurrection will bring you back after being dead for 200 years, as long as you didn't die from old age, natural causes, and the soul is free and willing to return. And finally, something we should bring up is the wish spell, which is the spell that can do just about anything if worded correctly and you have a sympathetic and understanding dungeon master. Hypothetically, you could replicate resurrection, but if the soul is unwilling to return, perhaps wish could bring it back. But I want to know, what does it mean for the soul is willing to return? Well, to answer that, we need to talk about souls. Why wouldn't an adventurer's soul be willing to return? Where do souls go? So to answer this, we need to examine what a soul is and what it means within the world of Dungeons & Dragons, because not all creatures have souls. The soul or spirit of an individual is the part of that individual's existence as a whole that is separate from the physical one. When a character dies, their physical body stays with the physical world, but their spiritual self can go on to an afterlife. Many creatures within the game don't have this dual nature, and their entire being is that of their home plane. Now, older editions, we called these creatures outsiders, but as of recent editions, we've kind of gotten away from that, and they're mostly known as fae, demons, devils, elementals, and celestials. Maybe. Now, not having a soul doesn't make a creature evil, it simply means they don't have the dual type of existence. For example, when a demon is killed on the prime material plane, their entire being is transformed and transported back to the abyss, its native plane. Fae creatures are similar along with devils and celestials. They are tethered to their home plane. Now, I know what you're thinking. We have Eladrin and Satyr and fairies. These are all Fae-type creatures that players can play. Wouldn't they have a soul? How does resurrection magic work on them? And to be honest, I don't know. In the case of elves, they have a connection to Corellon, the god Corellon, and a part of them would return to him. Other Fae creatures killed on the prime material plane, they might die, but there's some essence of them that goes back to the Feywild, and perhaps it doesn't reform into the exact same creature, but it returns there. if that essence is on the Feywild, does it have to be willing to be brought back to the body? And this is a tough call, and it's probably something you need to ask your dungeon master about for your particular game. But the thing to remember is that these outsider creatures have a singular existence. Other material plane humanoids have the dual existence. When the body dies, the soul moves on. If the soul moves on but the body doesn't die, you get undead. Well, some types of undead. The whole reason liches are immortal is that they prevent their soul from moving on to the afterlife. Their soul stays in a phylactery, and as long as that phylactery is kept safe, the lich can return to the prime material plane. Their soul was prevented from moving on to the afterlife. Now, souls that refuse to move on when they should often become trapped in the ethereal plane, and that's where we get ghosts for the Dungeons & Dragons setting. Or in the case of the Revenant, those are souls that clawed its way back to their original body to reanimate it for one act of vengeance. Now, many campaign settings and those specific cultures within those campaign settings, they probably all have a different interpretation of the afterlife. This, of course, not only changes with campaign settings, but also with additions of Dungeons & Dragons. So I'm going to give you the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, the Eberron campaign setting Afterlife, and then a very simplified version of the Dragonlance one, as it still is kind of a mystery in the sense of Dragonlance. First, the Forgotten Realms. If your character dies in the realms and its soul is ready to move on, that player character will find themselves on a journey to the Fugue Plane. The path and the time to get there varies for every character. You might look up and wonder how you got to the Fugue Plane so quickly, so instantaneously, or perhaps you spent what felt like an eternity in the ethereal plane only to be swept by the currents of the astral sea, which led you to the Fugue Plane. In 4th edition, souls made the trip to the afterlife via the Shadowfell, and souls that were too scared to face judgment, they would remain in the Shadowfell. The Fugue Plane is a gray, flat, and empty plane of existence. On the horizon, there is a large crystal spire, which is the only landmark in the entire plane, and it's a large city known as the City of Judgment. It is home to the god Kelemvor, Lord of the Dead, and his assistant Jergal. Now, Jergal was the original god of death, but he stepped down and is now more of a custodian of the dead. Now, souls arriving here usually are confused, and they wander about for days before arriving at the city. Within that time, devils appear, and they will try to make deals for the soul. For some, this seems like a better option than being judged by Kelemvor for what they did in life. Souls that made no deals and stayed within the city for around 10 days are then assisted by a representative of the deity they worshipped in life. Each god has a home within the planes of existence, and the soul would then be taken by the gods to that home plane and transformed into something that we call a petitioner. And perhaps later that petitioner could ascend even further and become an angel or some other servant of that god. Faithless souls and those with a false faith are judged by Kelemvor and sent to a respective afterlife based on who they were in life. That being said, even that judgment, if you were a good person in life but did not worship a particular deity, you could still be judged in good favor of Kelemvor. So the dwarf that lived a very good life, helping others and protecting the innocent, maybe he grew up never knowing who Moradin is, but Moradin would welcome him to his hall. Now, others believe it is the Raven Queen who shepherded souls to their final destination, and that destination is different for all and unknown to most except the Raven Queen. Her realm is part of the Shadowfell, so souls navigating to the Fortress of Memories in the Shadowfell, this makes sense that the Shadowfell became a transitive plane for souls. Now in Eberron, when you die, your soul goes to the realm of the dead, known as Dol-Ur. It is not a punishment or a reward, it just is the place, it's just where you go. It's gray and flat, and in that sense, it could be reminiscent of the Fugue Plane. Some believe eventually that their souls merge with Dol-Ur, becoming part of this plane, and that this is a natural part of the plane. It's a natural process. However, some deities and other entities can intervene in this process, so not all souls have to go to the realm of the dead. People who worship the Church of the Silver Flame, they believe that their souls become one with the flame. And the god of the dead, known as the Keeper, he occasionally will snatch souls before they make it to Dol-Ur to become his servants. Now for Dragonlance, the soul will travel through the Gate of Souls and into the next world. They carry their weight and experiences with them, their aspirations, sins, and triumphs, and this will move them forward, and if they cross the gate, they travel to the great beyond, where little is known. Along the way, they can be tempted to stay or make deals with dark entities to keep their soul tied to the material plane. If your soul made it to the realm of the dead, or the fugue plane, or to its final destination, you might not be the same entity that you were in life. So I'm asking the question again, what does it mean if the soul is willing to return? Well, someone who worshipped a god of nature, their petitioner form might be that of a great panther, eternally hunting in the beastlands. They might forget their mortal life and be unable to really recall and thus return. Others are in a blissful paradise and they don't wish to return. And if your character died in battle, would they want to come back? It's a good question to ask your players. If your character died and it was not a pleasant world, do they want to come back? So the next time you have a TPK, ask yourself if this new adventure could take place in the afterlife. So all of your player characters wake up on the ethereal plane, they battle their way through the Shadowfell looking for a way back. Because evil must be stopped, they have to get back to the prime material plane. Now there are portals to the fugue plane, the astral sea, and the realm of the dead. If a character's soul isn't willing or is just unable to return, an epic adventure to find out why could be in store. Mortals traveling through the Shadowfell in an attempt to find the Raven Queen and their long-lost friend. Be a really epic campaign. Or maybe the afterlife is more like Beetlejuice in your game, and they were just lost in the paperwork. That is why I won't do 2 shows a night anymore, babe. I won't do. Subscribe for more videos. Here is a playlist that I think you will enjoy, and here is a video YouTube thinks you will enjoy. Thank you again, Describe, for sponsoring this video. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Thanks again for watching.